Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Naruto video. This is going to be my review for the brand new Naruto One-Shot Manga, which is called the Whorl Within the Spiral. So this is the Minato One-Shot that I believe the reason this exists is because there was a giant Naruto character poll that they did, what was it, very start of this year, end of last year. And it went on for a really long time, the whole process about it, to try and make it as official as possible. And Minato ended up coming out on top, placing #1 in the character poll, and the idea was that the winner of the character poll would get a one-shot manga. And so here we go, we have a Minato-focused one-shot manga. The other thing here is that this seems to be timed to sort of, in a way, coincide with effectively almost like the return of the franchise from hiatus. Because obviously Boruto anime and manga are on hiatus for now. Naruto, of course, we don't really get regular content necessarily anymore there. This, I think, seems to line up with a lot of what we know about when other stuff is coming back. So we have this manga chapter now. As far as I'm aware, the Boruto manga is returning next month. So towards the end of August, we'll get the next chapter of Boruto. The first one post time skip, which should be very exciting. Then in early September, I think the Naruto manga episodes that we heard about that we're going to be getting, they're going to be releasing over a couple of weeks. And then I'm not sure if this is necessarily confirmed, but I think the expectation is that we'll probably begin to hear about what the plan for when the Boruto anime returns is going to be towards the end of those Naruto episodes. But I think the Boruto anime is probably the thing that's maybe the most unclear. But at the very least, the manga is not too far away. And so this is a very cool one-shot chapter to have here. So getting straight into it, I'll do my general thoughts and then we'll go kind of through it sort of page by page. Overall, I adored this chapter. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Like, I really feel I don't really have many problems with this, like, at all. This feels like about as close as possible as you can get to sort of a perfect one-shot. I think he managed to find the perfect way to just encapsulate a story and tell a mix of just interesting details, characterization, adding emotion in there, still having kind of standout art moments. There, I feel it's just a little bit of everything that makes Naruto good in this chapter, and it's just so well done. And look, I've seen a lot of people immediately go like, hey, this chapter is like better than like anything Boruto has ever put out. And I'm just like, well, in many ways I would expect that to be the case, because yes, a really tightly written, perfectly constructed story in 56 pages, I think, is of course going to tend to flow a little bit better than a monthly manga that is taking place over the course of years, that has so many more characters involved. You would expect a series that a manga chapter that only focuses on basically 2 characters to, yes, be a little bit more solidly written and hit the points that it has to do a little bit better, because it's just a contained thing. That is absolutely the case. But yes, there are things like the art here is done by Kishimoto, and it is wonderful, and it really highlights that he is a better artist than the Boruto artist that we have, but Kishimoto doesn't seem to want to do the manga schedule, so he's sticking to doing the story stuff. And while I think we wish we could have him back, I think the artist we ultimately have on Boruto has improved drastically, and I really hope that, I suppose, as we get into sort of the post-time skip stuff and we have new character designs, I think we probably should be in a slightly better spot where we'll see everything brought up to standard. Like, all the character designs are going to be updated for the older characters, and things I think should be a big improvement when we do come back. But again, I think there is also a bit of a difference here between sort of like the scheduling on a monthly manga even compared to how long I think Kishimoto probably had to do this story. But Anyway, let's get into this one. I think this one, it's absolutely best discussed as we go through it. There's so many great moments in this one. So yeah, once again, it's called The Whorl Within the Spiral, which even the title itself, I feel, fits in thematically with what's going on here, where we're ultimately dealing with effectively the origin of the Rasengan here, and the title kind of represents that, where like the chapter makes the point of a spiral is just like a 2D thing, like drawn on a flat surface. But if you add sort of a whorl or a spiral kind of like into it to make it 3D, that's when suddenly it becomes something more like the Rasengan. And there's even another metaphor, kind of visual metaphor in the chapter about this whole concept as well. But where we start off is super interesting. We jump straight in with a crazy event, and that is that we have this is Jiraiya's Team 6, which is of course himself and Minato, but the other two guys that were part of Minato's team are here as well. Now we only get the name for one of them here, and that is Dekai. The other one goes unnamed, but they are here facing off against the 4 Tails and 5 Tails Jinchuriki. So in terms of tail beasts, of course, we have Son Goku and Kokuo here. So pretty crazy thing here, 2 tail beasts, Jinchurikis here. So they say, you better bring the 9 Tails Jinchuriki if you really want to fight us. So they're suggesting basically you should bring Kushina with you if you want to stand a chance to match up against this power. And this is meant to be this like event that sort of gives Minato the Minato the inspiration for the Rasengan, effectively. He is being faced here with 2 tail beast bombs, Biju bombs, being thrown directly at him, and he sees how they form them and send them at him. Now, Jiraiya orders the retreat and is like, Minato, you're up. And so we get the flying Raijin Jutsu to get them out of there. And of course, in the distance, you see the explosion go off. That, like, they didn't have the power in this instant as to stand up against this. So they had to get out of there. But he just notes that. So that's the Biju's power. And so Kushina, has one of them inside of her too. And then we really nice cut here as well to referencing this. So to Kushina, she's having this nightmare where the 9 Tail, so Kurama, is talking to her. Hey, new vessel, I can feel it, your fear and your reservations. Do you understand? You are even more shackled than I am, but I can free you. So, and then she wakes up having the nightmare. And again, that's the whole theming surrounding the Jinchuriki. It's this kind of tragic existence, and this was something they were kind of pointing out with Naruto very early on in the series, and with Kushina, this was her kind of fear when she would ever take up the role as Jinchuriki, is that would she just live this very kind of sheltered, basically trapped life where she is held down by all these kind of, in a way, responsibilities around being a Jinchuriki. How can you actually live a happy life? And we'll get into all of that in this chapter, plus in combination with what we got from the original Minato Kushina flashback in the first place from the series anyway. So it's very, very strong. So she wakes up and she just notes that, like, okay, everything is normal, but in a way it is what the 9 Tail said. She is kind of shackled herself. That straight away, her 2 usual kind of keepers, the 2 Anbu people that follow her around, they're always there. That she is kind of kept in place. She can't leave this barrier that is in the village, and she isn't free in particular. And then they kind of make this kind of interesting visual thing here of like she watches this kind of butterfly basically fly out the window. It's free. She isn't, I think, is the idea they're kind of going for here. But we'll come back to this in terms of, I suppose, how she finds her way to be happy and free to a certain extent within the kind of limitations of what's going on. And again, she notes the same line over and over again. You must not go outside the barrier. And she knows this completely. But all she wants to do is just spend time one-on-one with Minato. So when she finally kind of meets up with him here, he's come back from a mission. And she's like, hey, I'm doing my sealing training with you, haven't I? Like, I'm going to teach you all the Uzumaki sealing jutsu. But he's like, sorry, I want to practice a different jutsu today. I just came to tell you that. And she's like, why aren't you telling me this? Like, she's beginning to kind of freak out a little bit here. Tell me what's going on here. Where's this going to be? And he's like, training ground 3. And she's like, but you can't tell me about it. And he's just like, no, 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 no. It's nothing like that. It's just unfinished. It's not, and it's dangerous. Like, I don't want you to get hurt kind of being around it when it happens. And so she kind of begins to calm down, but then is like, wait, if you don't want to spend time with me, just say so. And you can see the whole kind of red hot habanero kind of thing beginning to happen as her hair begins to rise up. But he manages to kind of get out of this because his team kind of calls him away. Like, we have to give the report on our mission. And again, there's a nice contrast here between he's kind of pulled away, he is doing all these missions, doing all this special training and stuff like that, whereas she gets pulled back by her handlers and is like, no, you can't go there any further and you'll walk outside the barrier. You can't go over there. And they do a nice overhead shot. It's really, really nice. Kishimoto's always been pretty good at doing these crazy detailed depictions of the village. And you see, it is this spiral pattern all across the village, but it really does only contain like the kind of central part of the village and then a tiny bit on the outskirts. It doesn't include Training Ground 3, which is kind of part of the plot of this book. So at this point, we see kind of Kushina kind of reflecting on things. The whole idea of her experience kind of growing up knowing that she's destined to become the Nine-Tailed Vessel. So we go into another flashback that involves Mito Uzumaki, of course. So this is the wife of the first Hokage and a former Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tails. So this is back when she still is the Jinchuriki, and she's kind of like teaching Kushina about like preparing her for what she will experience. And again, it's the dynamic that we knew about from before. Find love to fill your vessel with. Then, even if you make the sacrifice and become the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, you will be able to be happy. And she's just like, but you won't find love if you just wait around for it. So you kind of have to kind of seek it out yourself. And so Mito wants to show Kushina something, and so she's bringing her to a special place. So we'll come back to this in a very important moment in the chapter. But back in the present day, what Kushina does is she decides she doesn't want to be kind of shackled anymore. So she seals with the chains, her sealing chains, the Anbu members to the ground and kind of heads off. They actually note that her power in binding is getting stronger as she gets older. So she just heads off, and we see her step over the barrier. But the second she does this, it's like the Nine-Tails has basically been awakened. That the seal was keeping it kind of calm to a certain extent, like that it's not able to have a true influence on her. But now suddenly it is. Straight away, Kurama is like, yes, that's the spirit. You Uzumaki clan ninja are prideful of your swirly seal's power. But it's used you as much as you've used it. And now you are trapped and drowning in the spiral of time. I am the only one who can free you from those who did this to you. Don't forget your hatred. Don't trust anyone. So again, this is like very negative, drowning in hatred kind of Kurama before the whole Naruto development happens. So he is very much representative of like, if you give yourself over to the Nine-Tails, you will give yourself over to hatred and violence completely. That's the whole dynamic here. So as she's making her way over to Minato at the training ground, we go to the training ground and we see that Jiraiya is kind of overseeing Minato's jutsu training. So we see that it's very clearly the Rasengan. It's got the kind of spiral pattern, but he's noting that like every time I do it, it's either a dud or it discharges early. It's not stable and it's difficult to control. Jiraiya notes that it's very helpful, I've heard, if you match chakra rotation with the whirl of your hair. And they're like, wait, isn't that a folktale? No, I actually, it works for me. I think about it myself. It's the way I do my chakra, Jiraiya says. Mine goes kind of right, so I do it clockwise. So Minato's like, okay, cool, I'll do it too. Check my hair. So Jiraiya checks his hair and it's like, you've got two whirls, one in each direction. And Minato's like, wait, what? What does this mean? Like, which way do I go then? And he's like, I don't know. So Jiraiya breaks out the ice pop, the double ice pop at this point, and is just like, which half do you want? And Minato's like, it doesn't matter. And then he's like, whoa, if both of them are the same. And then he realizes, this is how I'll do it. I'll need chakra equally in both directions. And so this is where he does the Rasengan like properly for the first time. He's just like, he has it in his hand. He's delighted about kind of finally doing the technique properly. And I guess it's the proof that like the whole whirl of your hair thing is completely correct. It's just slightly more complicated for those who have the double whirl. But Jiraiya notes that I've also heard having two whirls is a sign of genius, and we know Minato is a genius kind of level shinobi. So he's like, I shall call this technique the Ice Pop inspired Nimbus Jiraiya Twin Whirl Sphere. And of course, no, that's not going to work. So we're immediately establishing that. Where does it get the Rasengan name from? And we will get to that pretty shortly. So Jiraiya at this point basically leaves, just saying like, you should rest up. You've practiced quite a lot. And as he leaves, Kushina pokes her head out from behind a tree. She's been watching the last kind of stage of this happening. She explains that Lord Third apparently gave her special permission to be here. He didn't. And he's just like, cool, great, you're here. She apologizes for yelling at him earlier on, but he apologizes back saying that, like, you know, I broke the promise to do the kind of training with you because I wanted to perfect this jutsu, but I'm perfecting this jutsu because I want this to be the jutsu that I use to protect you. And he's like, we're in the middle of a war. We don't know when you might be sent to the battlefield. Because again, that was the whole idea of the start of the chapter, is that the other nations are sending their Jinchuriki out onto the battlefield to be these kind of weapons, basically. And in a way, Minato is preparing for the time where, like, inevitably, our village is probably going to be forced to use you at some point. It's just the way the war is kind of going. And so when that happens, I want you to have a special jutsu that kind of works kind of thematically and with the way you work as a Jinchuriki, basically. That it will work against Biju and Jinchuriki and in concert with your own Jinchuriki chakra volume. That's Minato's kind of logic behind this. And he's like, I don't want to lose you. And it's this big, you know, full page, just 2 panels, one of Minato's face, one of Kushina's face. And it's a very emotional scene as we basically get this kind of, I suppose, moment where I'm not sure if this is meant to be necessarily the first time that she really gets like this confirmation that like he loves her, and like we of course know that she kind of loves him already. But it's meant to be this very meaningful, specific kind of instance of that happening. But it is kind of shattered when immediately Kurama basically attempts to take control. So he tries to take over Kushina here, and immediately a tail comes out, and so we get a little bit of the kind of chakra mode stuff beginning to happen, like what was happening to Naruto in early Shippuden, where he would become angered and the different tails would come out, and it's the kind of countdown timer thing, effectively, of he will be unstoppable if he reaches 9 tails kind of coming out. So right now it's just 1 as Minato is sent flying away. Inside, of course, Kurama is like, I told you not to trust anyone. He'll come to use you, undo all my seals, and you'll be freed from my pain, or I will possess and kill you, basically. So free me, or I'll kill you. That's the whole idea here. But suddenly, a sealing jutsu kind of overcomes Kurama, and it's revealed that Minato has gotten back up and is using one of the Uzumaki clan sealing techniques on Kushina, like on her stomach, like we of course know where it is. And this is a cool moment because Kurama is noting here that, like, wait, he's not from the Uzumaki clan, and he's doing this incredibly detailed sealing jutsu, and he's like augmenting it like perfectly, like with his own style. A most powerful shinobi ranking alongside first Hokage Hashirama. Unbelievable. So this is Kurama acknowledging that this is a Hokage level kind of shinobi here. And he notes, why is a shinobi of your level fussing over this girl? Like, he doesn't rate her as his vessel at all, but he can sense the power of Minato. But Minato just says, I like strong people. People stronger than me. And that's why I love Kushina. I won't let you have her. And so, again, this is this big moment here where she hears this for maybe one of the first times, and this kind of is going to inspire her to do something. But we get the other part of the backstory with Mito. So, what did Mito want to show Kushina? So she brings her to basically where the sort of center of the barrier is, which is this kind of building that has this spiral or helical, as we'll find out, staircase to the top. And she explains some of the history of the Uzumaki clan here. You know, the clan is now scattered. We've lost everything. We gained acclaim, of course, as shinobi who with proficient life force and sealing jutsus. But this, in a way, this infamy became sort of the thing that was kind of almost used against us, and that's why we've been kind of scattered. That, you know, we are weak now, but even though our abilities kind of bring stability and sealing and stuff like that. But she then says that this house, the family crest jutsu formula on the floor, strengthens the sealing strength of Jinchuriki when combined with the one outside. And Kushina asks, am I really going to host the Nine Tails? And Mito just notes, you are strong. Basically, even to me, you come across as strong. You have much more lustrous red hair than I do. What did you want to show me? And it is this, but it's more what's on top. But the staircase itself is important. So Kushina says, a spiral staircase. No, it's a Rasen, a helix, a helical staircase. Now let's climb it. And she notes the details here. A spiral is flat and fixed. The Uzumaki form remains unchanging, but a helix is three-dimensional. Even if it just seems like you're going in circles, your altitude slowly changes, as does the scenery. What's at the top? And Mito says, the thing that is inside my vessel. And so they get to the top, and she says, you know, whenever it's difficult for me, I come up here and look up. And Kushina looks up as well and is like, this is inside of your vessel? Isn't this person your husband? And she's like, yes, Kushina, we may be inside a spiral, but if you have the will to climb, you should be able to find love. And once you do, the spiral shall become a helix. And we get this wonderful shot. It's so well done, and there's a few scenes like this in this chapter with the art, where it's at the back of the shot, it's Mito looking at Kushina, who is looking up at the Hokage stone faces, and she's looking up at the face of the first Hokage, Hashirama, her husband, of course. That's what, you know, is inside of her vessel. That's the love that she kind of filled herself with, was kind of, you know, his love, basically. So that's a really, really nice moment. And she says, it will be nice if you manage to see a different view one day, Kushina. And Kushina's like, yes, ma'am. And so then we cut back to the present day. Kushina opens her eyes and is kind of emboldened here. She is determined. The sealing chains come out of her here. She's going to fight too. She will resist. She seems to seal down the Nine Tails here. We get a nice cutout, and we see that Kushina in the kind of tailed kind of beast form also kind of has like the markings that kind of like Naruto got before. You can see the start of the kind of like fox ears kind of coming up and stuff like that. It's a cool look, even though it's this kind of, you know, dark kind of thing that's kind of happening here as she's kind of being overtaken. But yeah, they're like, we'll do this together. Kurama is about to form a tail beast bomb here. He's in the process. He sends Kushina flying to the ground. This gives kind of Kushina, like, controlled by Kurama, an opportunity, and hand straight through Minato's chest. This is perhaps one of the moments in the chapter where I'm a little bit like, is this a little bit kind of overdone? for overall what this chapter is trying to accomplish. I get it to a certain degree, is that it's meant to be sort of ominously foreshadowing of how the two will eventually die, how Naruto will lose his parents, as to something like this happening on a grander scale. I'm just not sure the chapter necessarily needed a, like, Minato gets a hand punched through his stomach level of injury. I think you could have done something that wasn't quite as extreme as this. But it's a very much a nitpick with the chapter. It's just maybe a little bit like, you didn't need to go that far in this moment. But, you know, Kushina's urging Minato to get away, but he's like, I won't leave you, I'd never leave you. He's standing strong here, keeping the sealing jutsu up, basically. And he says, I exist inside Kushina at all times. And this is the kind of whole idea here of they're playing with this idea of, like, fill yourself with love, like, who is kind of like the person inside you, and the fact that in a way, him doing the sealing jutsu and being, like, literally touching her in this form kind of allows him to kind of enter this, like, inner space and fight this battle alongside of her, is a kind of impactful thing to highlight that, you know, this is this kind of true love, that this is the same dynamic as Mito and the first Hokage as well. So together we see here Kushina is keeping the ceiling up, the chains, and Minato comes flying in with a Rasengan. So obviously right now he's still calling it the whole Ice Pop inspired Jiraiya thing, but it's that technique. So we get this crazy clash of Rasengan versus Biju Bomb, as he says, I will never let you have Kushina. And then he wakes up in a hospital bed. He's obviously gotten, like, somewhat badly injured here, because obviously he was stabbed through the chest, and I guess he got other kind of cuts and bruises as things went on. But it seems like this ultimately saved the day, that they effectively, quote unquote, defeated Kurama in this moment together, because Kushina is perfectly fine here and actually, like, hugs Minato in the hospital bed here. Interestingly, it is Jiraiya and Tsunade watching on, which is nice just to get the inclusion of, like, hey, she's here. And as the two of them walk out of the hospital then together, they're like, this is Minato and Kushina. We can finally start training again. Hey, about that jutsu from the other day. What about it? It looked really similar to the chakra sphere Ninetales was trying to use, but how'd you come up with it? And he just notes that, like, I got to see a Jinchuriki's chakra sphere firsthand on the battlefield, and I used it as reference. I wanted to give you a jutsu that would help you stand up to other Jinchuriki. I called the jutsu the Ice Pop inspired Nimbus Jiraiya Twin Whorl Sphere. That's awful, way too long. And he's like, you think so? And she's just like, hey, the jutsu's for me, right? Let me name it. And he's like, okay. And she's like, come with me. I want to show you somewhere where I can think it over properly. So they go into the room with the symbol on the floor. They ascend the helical staircase. They get to the top. And Minato's like, I never knew such a place existed at all. And Kushina is standing in the same place Mito was. So she's more in the back this time out. And she gets the kind of shocked reaction as she sees the kind of butterfly land on Minato's kind of, like, finger and kind of fly off. And she's getting the same view that, in a way, Mito got from before. This is her version of the view, adjusted to kind of fit her kind of situation. And she's like, Rasengan, that should be the name for the new jutsu. What do you think? And he's like, yeah, Rasengan, I like it. But you see what her view is. And this is another perfectly done shot here, where from her point of view, where she is in the shot, she sees the kind of three Hokage stone faces lined up. Hashirama, Tobirama, and the third Hokage, Sarutobi. Why did I forget his name randomly? But then Minato, where he's standing, his face ends up looking like it's right next to the third Hokage. Like it's in the exact perfect position, like where his monument will be one day. So wonderful shot here as, like, you know, you connect the dots to the scene from earlier on in the chapter, and it's just like, that's so nicely done overall, and that is how the chapter ends, with the key technique in like the entire series getting its name here, and the exact details of like where it came from, which is, it's kind of like crazy that it's only now that we're specifically getting it, but I think it's so wonderfully done. Like, I love the relationship between Kushina and Minato. It's probably one of my favorite relationships in fiction, full stop, not just in Naruto. It's so nicely done. Those flashback chapters and the episodes of the anime are definitely some of the best in like the entire series. And this, as like an addition onto that, is perfectly done in my mind. These characters kind of getting to spend a little bit more time with them during a kind of period that we kind of skipped over in those episodes a little bit is very nice. So seeing kind of Kushina kind of struggling with it in similar ways to Naruto, when I think they obviously implied that she went through very similar things to Naruto, but because we didn't see it, it almost felt like, is it kind of almost a little bit more of an exclusive thing that Naruto faces the specific challenges as a Jinchuriki he faced? But no, you see Kushina going through kind of very similar things here as well. So really, really great stuff here. Even just the stuff at the start with like getting to see like the other tail beasts, and the kind of implication that like in the background in this era, you know, the war going on, that like the nations are sending their Jinchurikis into battle, and that's how kind of deadly kind of things are. And especially because, like, say, like the rest of Jiraiya and Minato's team, you don't really see much of them. Like, there's almost this weird implication that like Dakai and the other guy are killed at some point, but we don't know the details specifically on that. So just super strong. And again, using the super emotional, like I've always connected really strongly with those Mito and Kushina kind of flashback scenes. They're really, really nicely done here. The adding an extra layer onto that, again, the whole spiral staircase that is actually the helical staircase, and that's really, really, really well done. So I have like next to no complaints about this chapter. I think this is like a pretty much perfect one-shot story in my mind. There was such a clear vision of what exactly he wanted to do, that he was given the task of effectively write a Minato story, and he added in sort of like Mito and Kushina. And sure, you can maybe make the case that it's slightly more Kushina kind of focused overall than Minato. I think this was the right choice to make it about both of them, and like an extension of that flashback scene, rather than just purely just Minato on his own technical details of forming the technique. Adding the emotional layers onto this with the relationship and stuff like that was such a great decision. So I'm going to wrap it up there before I start repeating myself. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one-shot chapter. And then, yeah, as we ramp back up for Boruto and stuff like that, and the Naruto anime episodes, I will be reviewing them on the channel. So when the next Boruto chapter comes out, I will be reviewing it, all that sort of stuff. So definitely stay tuned for that stuff. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.